So my name's Al Turner. I'm sort of emceeing the stage this year. So just a couple of things around it. So previously, CHS has been all about sort of compassion and personal growth and professional growth. And we've got a little logo that's hiding behind here, but it's all been about the growth of the individual. And that's kind of been how we've put these sessions together over the last couple of years, especially after the pandemic when people really wanted to crack on with their careers. But the overwhelming piece of feedback that we got this year was just more practical advice on how to organise events. So what we've tried to do is throughout the year, throughout the day, starting at the beginning, just try and collect some tips on event organising. Start at the beginning with Event Organising 101. We went through resilience, we went to AI, we're going to do sustainability, we're going to do marketing, we're going to do accessibility as well. So hopefully what you'll get is a series of tips and advice and insight that kind of takes over a lot of heavy lifting around the event organising. What we're doing is, as we go, we're going to put that all together into a PDF, a compendium, and just because you're here, you'll get that sent to you by the time you get home as well. We're not going to patronise you. We realise that if you're in the room, you probably do know how to organise events, but I do think it's often nice to know that you're doing it right anyway, and two, that there's always something that you can learn, especially from great speakers like we've got here as well. I'm really delighted that sustainability continues to be an issue of importance, and what we're going to try and do today is just kind of move that on a little bit as well. It was interesting. There was a study in, I think, M&IT magazine saying that event organisers are getting bored or complacent around sustainability. I'd be interested to see what you think about that. But the fact that we've got lots of people all sitting down here shows that perhaps it's not. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say as well. So without further ado, just because we are about compassion and kindness, can you give a bit of a round of applause for Joe and Celia before they even say anything? And while I sit down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Joe, first of all, to give us a quick 30-second intro to yourself, and then I'm going to do the same for you, Celia.
I'm Jo Austin. I'm representing the Royal Armouries today, this amazing venue that we're actually all in. And the Royal Armouries is part of Lime Venue Portfolio, of which I am the sales director. I'm also the C&E sustainability lead for Compass Group UK and Ireland. So recognising that the sustainability agenda is here to stay, isn't going anywhere, and it's really an important part of the meetings, conference and events world.
Thanks, Joe. Celia, why don't you give us a...
Hello everyone, my name's Celia Gaze. I'm the Chief Exec and Founder of the Wellbeing Farm. So I'm on a completely different spectrum to Joe. I'm an independent single site conference and wedding and events venue based in Lancashire, so just outside Bolton, for those of you who know the Lancashire. So sorry, wrong rows here today. And yeah, and we're one of the first B Corp certified venues in the country. Are any of you familiar with the B Corp certification? Are you kind of, yeah? I've got a few nods, so I'm not going to be talking a different language, so that's fine.
Fantastic. Celia, I want to start with you, right? Because one of our first points, so we're picking up tips all the day, so I'm just going to PowerPoint that one as soon as Sam gives us a nod. But one of the big things that we want to talk about is that one. So talk to me about, where did the Wellbeing Farm come from? Talk to me about why you're doing it and what it does.
So the Wellbeing Farm came from my original experience of work-related stress and burnout, to be honest, while I was a director in the NHS. And I came out and my partner had a rundown farm, and I thought, could I create and turn this into something special around well-being? But the reason I went so much into sustainability is I had no gas. And so I ended up installing and thinking, how on earth am I going to power this place? And I ended up building and installing a wind turbine. And that wind turbine became this like beacon of sustainability. And I thought, crikey, how on earth can I not be sustainable with this sort of big wind turbine? It was almost a badge that everybody expected it to be sustainable. So that was 12 years ago. And I've lived and breathed sustainability ever since. And for me, I absolutely love it. It's been something that's been critical to the growth of the business. We're really a purpose. We really have a destination to try and change how people see hospitality hospitality. We're really in for the experience, and it's just been central to our recruitment, our growth of the business, and just absolutely central to the purpose of what we're all about.
And the idea is, and I was start off with that statistic that M&IT published, which I do think is possibly right, is that perhaps people are becoming a bit tired of it and things like that. I guess our contention is that it is still a passion point. Talk to me about that.
Well, there are 51,000 companies in the B Corp pipeline at the moment. That doesn't sound to me that people are getting a bit fed up of it. And to be honest, young people are really having and really seeing sustainable venues as something they really want to work in. If I asked any members of my staff or asked any people who have come to the farm, why did you choose the Wellbeing Farm? And the number one criteria will not be the bow tie wearing llamas. It will be sustainability. And for me, we're just on the tip of the iceberg of what sustainability is all about. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like AI. You almost can't stop it. The planet's going to die. And if we're all not doing our bit, and I'm all for leaving a legacy, I don't want to be accountable to my grandchildren who go, why didn't you do your part? I don't see people getting tired of sustainability.
Joe, I'd be really interested in your view on that as well, for someone who looks at the industry every single day.
Absolutely. So I come at this as on the scale of it all. So working for the largest catering company in the UK and Ireland, having 80 venues within the portfolio. And we come at the sustainability angle through, if we can't make a difference with 80 venues, with 2 million day delegates on an annual basis, with loads and loads of dinners across the whole of the UK, then what can we do? So we come at it at a little bit of a different angle. But the biggest challenge in reality is that from a food organisation, the global food system, everybody thinks about sustainability in terms of we can't travel anymore and we need to do various things. But the food system actually, is responsible for 26% of the carbon generated today, which has got us in the problem we're in. Just to put that in some context, travel is 14%. Right? And actually energy is only 33%, so only slightly more is energy. And why is that? Well, everybody eats, don't they? Yeah? Not everybody travels, but actually everybody eats. And the harsh reality of it is, if we did things differently, we could halve those emissions by just making some more sensible choices. And they're not being extreme choices, they're reasonable and sensible choices. So I kind of come at this from a scale point of view. If we do some of the things that we've actually signposted to do, which is plant forward, we still eat meat. We just eat more plants. We eat seasonal, we eat regional. We've banned air freight, right? Some simple things, then we can actually all make a difference. And I think that's where we come at this from a scale point of view, of lots of people in small venues, in large venues, and we just come at this from that scale angle.
And I was going to ask you as well, how much do you see, I mean, you guys have really led the way on a lot of this sort of stuff, but how much do you see that connecting with event organisers, your customers, but ultimately their delegates as well, this idea of sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a really, really valid point, because I think it's like everything in the meetings, conference and events world. It's actually not what we sell, it's what customers are prepared to buy. And I think the minute that we actually align those two things, we're in a better place. Because, but also we do have to align these thoughts. So, there are companies who sponsored COP, the largest climate change conference in the world. It would be incredibly wrong of those companies that have spent millions of pounds sponsoring events like that to go back to buying meetings, conference and events unsustainably, without a shadow of a doubt. But the biggest challenge in our world, and it's something that I've seen and I talk about on a really regular basis, is organiser to stakeholder to delegate and communication. I think, I often get, it's not what my delegates want. They want beef. Right? They want beef on the menu. And we go, right, okay, why do they want beef on the menu? Because they've always had beef on the menu, right? So the ultimate thing is, I think they would be disappointed if there was, we do have companies who've come to us and said, we want a completely plant-based event. And we go, do you know what? We'd love to deliver a plant-based event. We're really good at it. And actually, some of the food we deliver is absolutely awesome. Here in particular, the Royal Armouries do an amazing job on their menu choices for events here, right? But if the delegates are expecting a fillet steak for dinner, when they get here, they're going to be disappointed. So we have to start that whole communication piece right from the get-go. Why are we doing it? And the impact it makes. And you can help us do this. And actually, it's that delegate, it's that whole communication piece to delegates that is absolutely crucial in making this land.
That's great. Joe, I want to stick with you for a second, if that's okay, because every time I speak to you, you say these words, pick your partners wisely. So I want to give you the platform to just have a little bit of runabout, because it is important.
It's our mantra. So, the Royal Armouries is one of our amazing venues. We've got another 80 of them at Line Venue Portfolio. We tell our customers, as you will, Celia, as well, is pick your partner well, pick your venue wisely, and you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff, because actually it's already taken care of in the venues. And actually, if you do that and you do choose your partners well, and you choose your partners well in terms of your speakers, in terms of your AV supplier, in terms of the provider of your technology, if you choose your partners well, you will probably be 80% of the way there of having a very sustainable event without even actually having to do any hard work yourselves.
Celia, I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about the farm, but I guess when people come to you, they are already thinking about sustainability. But tell me, what sort of things do they get just by working with you guys? What boxes can they tick? What can they? How can they pass that value onto their delegation, the messages they want from their events?
Yeah, so we have different things, like we have green wedding packages, green party packages, green corporate events packages. So they can choose a much more sustainable option. I mean, similarly, we sort of vet our suppliers quite well. Anyone who comes to us, we're quite strict. It's great when you've got a sort of, when I come to conferences or business exhibitions and you're going around all the stands, you can just go, are you sustainable? No. Right. Okay. Well, I'm moving on, because I don't need those sorts of suppliers here, because it opens up, and by you becoming sustainable, it encourages other people to be sustainable. Some of our suppliers now, we're saying to them, because you have to survey all your suppliers, and if they are of a certain distance away, or if they're not sustainable, and really I have to have a conversation, say either become sustainable or we cannot partner with them, and it's as simple as that. And they're very, very strict. I mean, certainly when we went through the B Corp certification, they vet all your suppliers. They want to know the distance from your venue to the supplier, and the supplier's policies as well. So they're very strict on all of this. And to be honest, that's a good thing, because it does make everybody change and do their part. And I mean, we've had people come. There's plenty of wedding venues between London and Bolton, let's be honest, and people have come to us from London just because of this cert and because of this, like the B Corp, and because of the sustainability. Similarly, companies coming from other places. And for me, it is becoming more and more what customers and what suppliers are wanting.
I gave Joe the platform of the pick the partners wisely, but I remember we were talking about it as well, and I sort of said, what advice would you give to the guys? And you just said, just do it. So just talk to us about your journey. Why did you just do it, and why would you encourage people to just do it?
Well, a lot of people think that to become sustainable, you've got to kind of go and do the solar panels and the EV chargers, and it all can become expensive. And I started my journey literally by swapping the black bin bags to clear plastic bags. And you might think, why? Well, what's the big deal about that? Well, when you put everything in a black plastic bag, you can't see what you're throwing away. And the tin foil gets scrunched with a can, gets scrunched with some food waste, gets scrunched with the cardboard and the paper, and you name it. People just throw it in the bin and don't even think about it. The minute you change the clear plastic bag, and we're talking, about 10p difference, you can start seeing what's being thrown about, and that starts the conversation, because you start saying to your chefs, well, hang on, why is that tin in with the crunch up silver tin foil and with the blue roll and all the rest of it? Why have you not separated that? And then they start having conversations, and then you start seeing the food waste, and you start questioning the chef what you're throwing away. You start auditing it, and that little conversation around the clear plastic bag and what's being, so it starts a whole conversation into, and then you start saying, well, what else could you do? What could you have done with that tin? Do you even need to buy it in a tin, or could you have and it's unbelievable that it starts there. It doesn't start with a massive, expensive solar powered system or a EV charger. It starts with simple systems. Anybody can be sustainable. Start there, because you will find the minute you start looking at the waste and having those conversations and monitoring your electricity and water and things like that, it'll lead to you naturally being more sustainable.
That's a really good point. And again, Joe, you've talked a lot about eco-anxiety.
Yeah,
so people don't just do it. Talk to me about what you think about that.
I think that eco-anxiety is very, very real. Nobody actually rocks up to do a bad job. I think we need to help each other do a better job and then do an even better job next year. And we'll only know that if we start on that journey. I absolutely believe that don't wait for perfect to deter progress, right? Just start small and just get on with doing a few things, because then the aggregation of all of those little things will actually grow and it will be much better, it'll be easier to do. Net zero is what we're all talking about, right? You can't be zero. Every time we open our mouths, every time we walk, you know, what we actually have to do is we just have to do better. Yeah, to make sure that we're actually generating less, so that the problems we're actually going to solve are not as great as they have been in the past. And we're actually doing an awful lot around that. And whilst there's so much more to do, we're actually on a really very good trajectory and a really good journey, because we're all talking about it. It is simply going to become housekeeping, though. This is simply going to be the way in which we all do business moving forward, because the government, heading at us like a steam train is the task force transition plan. There is all sorts of things heading our way, the financial reporting around sustainability and greenwashing. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're going to be in trouble moving forward. So it's really important to do things well, do things properly and build on those blocks. But, if we're going for perfect, we will be deterring progress.
That's a great shout. Did you want to come? Sorry.
No,
The next one, Joe, you've briefly touched on communicating to your delegates, but I guess, Celia, when they come to you, they need to buy into a certain way of doing things. Delegates aren't always the best behaved creatures, are they? How do you get them to buy into this, what you're doing and how to do it and how to behave, and help you help them?
So I think that's where these packages that I mentioned before, the green packages, green wedding packages, corporate packages, party packages. So we sort of suggest to think, we don't say, no, you can't do that, because we're not setting out to ruin someone's dream for their wedding. But we sort of discourage things like plastic sprinkles. We discourage the use of flip-flops. We discourage kind of some of these favours that you used to have, which is, you get a lot of stuff on the tables and it's all plastic, and we sort of incentivise them. They're saying, look, if you don't do that, we'll give you something else. We'll throw in a free use of a room. We'll give you a free breakout session. If you're not going to, if you do just online papers and we're not printing agendas and we're not doing all of this, we'll give you complimentary different things. So, we encourage, we've partnered with a local coach company, so we can, instead of all the cars coming, we can offer incentives if they come by coach and things like this. And I think it's just little things that you can keep substituting and looking at what the couples, or whether it's couples or delegates or conference, and just keep encouraging them to just do their part. It's difficult. We're linked to a 125-year-old family business of butchers. How do I tell my family, sorry, we're not, we're on a farm. We've got the sheep on the farm. It's very, very difficult to do. But we are seeing this movement. If they want vegan corporate event, if they want vegan wedding, we will produce it. But at the same time, we're also not going to tell them, no, we're not going to give them meat. But it's better quality. We know exactly where the animals come from and where they've been rearing them for things. So yeah.
Joe, are you doing anything at the moment? This idea of communicating to delegates, it's difficult, isn't it? Trying to get delegates to do what you want, whether it's putting the right piece of trash in the right bin, understanding if you're going to run out, you're going to run out. Do you have any advice for anyone? Because this is a tough art.
It really, really is. And, I think menu engineering and menu choices and actually education and enablement around that is absolutely huge. Explaining to an event organiser the better choices. We use carbon labelling for that. So there are dishes that we can, and then we can demonstrate, you had your, the last time you had your event for 500 people and this was your menu. We can actually tell you the difference you've made by choosing the menu you've chosen today. But still the biggest issue in our world is the buffet, isn't it? it's the buffet, and it's the buffet for 500 people. So, you know, we endeavour to not have any food waste. Food waste is huge. Food waste is a massive contributor to the problems that we actually have today. So, you know, we measure our chefs and our businesses on how much food they waste, and that's, you know, anything that gets measured gets done. And that's a fact, you know, and if it's a KPI of team members and general managers and finance, it actually will happen. And until it actually gets to that point, we are all struggling because, you know, like I say, what gets measured gets done. But what we actually do is we thank people for helping us have no food waste. We don't apologise for running out of chicken. Right? We say thank you for helping us have no food waste today. So 500 delegates, you know, the first 100 will have a choice of everything. The second 100 will have, you know, pretty much that. You know, the next 100 will have probably less of a choice, and the last 100 will always get incredibly well fed. There'll be some great choices on there, but it will not be absolutely everything at the beginning of a buffet. But we all have to buy into that. We all absolutely have to buy into that. And this equates to life, doesn't it? So there'll be those of us who have been around long enough to remember that M&S, if you went into an M&S at 5 o'clock on a daily basis, there'd be stuff that we're selling off for 10p. No, it's actually gone now. If you go into Marks and Spencer's at 5 o'clock, you'll actually see probably rows and rows of blinds down on refrigerators because they have sold out of stuff, and they are unashamedly stopping doing that. They're stopping selling cheaper things because they're buying less, selling it out, because the food waste issue is absolutely massive. And it isn't, food waste is different in different things. You know, there's the difference of food waste in food preparation. And there's lots of things we can do around that. Here we've got some amazing food waste stories here. You know, we actually give all our vegetable clippings to the Yorkshire Farm Association to use for compost, right? So simple steps like that. The waste management process here is absolutely phenomenal. But the reality is, if somebody's taken too much food on their plate in a buffet, there is nothing you can do with that waste when it gets back to the kitchen. There is absolutely nothing you can do with that waste other than put it in the waste bin. And that's what we have to avoid. So we've got to stop overproduction, we've got to educate people to expect less, and we've got to manage portion control. COVID did us a lot of favours in that, right? You know, when we actually couldn't have buffets and we could actually portion control. So food GPs and portion control were actually in a much better place when we were serving delegates at meetings and conferences rather than them helping themselves.
Thanks, Joe. That was really, so I've zapped up my next one about measurement because you very, very helpfully talked a little about that. I'm really interested in your own view on measurement. Obviously, Joe works at very macro. You're working on a very intimate basis. How do you look at it?
So we just do our measurements. I mean, very simply, you go and record your electricity measurements every month. First of the month, you go to the meters, read your electricity meters. Similarly, we do that with the water. We're on a water meter, so we read the water. We measure the food waste and record that, put it on a spreadsheet, and we also measure the staff travel coming through. And then we just collect that routinely, but you will find that when you start looking at your carbon footprint and whatever, these are the measurements that they're going to want to collect. I also measure the wind turbine, how much that's generating, the output from that, and the things that we generate and the things that we pass on to the grid, and that's all measured. But it takes, you know, if you do those few simple things, it literally takes 20 minutes a month. It's not a big deal. You can obviously get more technical. I mean, I don't have the resources that Joe has and that, but this is enough for a small business just to start you off and to start calculating your carbon footprint. That's all you need, just those basic measures.
Thanks, Celia. I'm conscious of time, and I'm about to drop a really difficult one on Joe because I'm going to ask about Scope 3, and you, Celia, as well. So can you just give it, because I'm just aware, it was like the last session on AI, there's some people starting, some people, but Scope 3 is coming. So maybe you could just give us a bit of an overview of what it is, what it means, and perhaps some advice in terms of coming into that area.
Absolutely. So, you know, in sustainability terms, scopes 1 and 2 are actually in our control. One, you know, scope 1 is we can just make the decisions about travelling. We can make the decisions about what we do with our people. 2 is all about energy. But scope 3 is the stuff that is completely out of our control. And this is the stuff that you know, we have to order food from people. We actually have to, you know, get all of our supplies. And it's the stuff that we have very, very little control over. So in a large organisation like Compass, we are very, very fortunate. So we buy big. And we've got some really high-level stats, you know, how many eggs we buy compared to how many supermarkets sell and things like that. They're massive, right? So, but what we do is we do supply switch. So we've made it a really big mission to ensure that we're buying well. And so we've given suppliers the opportunity to come on the journey with us and us help them. Because actually, as a very big customer of theirs, there could be businesses that couldn't survive should we move our buying away from them. So it's been a very, very long journey. But actually, it's all about the supply chain and choosing your supply chain well. And I think that is the first step in terms of that. So buy well, and it's back to your butcher. You know, I would buy from your butcher any day of the week. You know, it's local, it'll be regional, it'll actually be seasonal. It will be, you know, it'll be we are massive about our animal welfare and husbandry and all of those things, because this isn't just about what is actually on the plate, it's how it's actually got to you and got on the plate. So there are so many things. But the scope 3, there is so much out of our control. It's about gathering the control of the things that you can impact and buying with good companies and good suppliers and working together. And it is a little bit back to you. Pick your partners well. You know, if we choose good, reliable suppliers, I don't have to worry about that. I know when my veg arrives, I know where it's coming from, I know where the meat's coming from. We know all of that. We don't have to worry about that anymore because we actually have all of that information.
Thanks, Jo. I guess it's about influence, Celia. How much are you looking at your own influence, and how do you look at this as a subject matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think we try and do quite a lot of educational. I mean, especially we run something called B Corp Fest, which is where all the B Corps come together. And that was just me being very passionate about the movement. But what I really like about that is they help you with the criteria. They're very much, you know, you will get extra points on your certification if you buy and purchase for independence, women-owned suppliers, people with disabilities, if you're purchasing from them, if you're purchasing, very strict on the 30-mile radius from where your location is. So you're choosing quite a lot and supporting the community. You know, this thing around you being an influencer, you know, with us, we're probably, you know, we're only a small venue, but we are probably the biggest employer in the village and what have you around. So we have a big impact. We have all these people suddenly coming, you know, every week to us, doing traffic, doing everything. So you have a big role to play in influencing the entire place. So the more you can look at your practices, the more you look at your suppliers, can you partner with coaches? Can you partner with local hotels? Do you hold this? And it becomes something that you start helping the entire community, you know, by them purchasing from you. They use the hotels, they use the taxis, and it becomes a really, real great thing for the community to develop that.
That's great. Thanks, Celia. And then just lastly, when we were discussing this, and I'll stick with you, Celia, go on, give us your view on offsetting, because this is, I'm really getting us into troubled waters now here with 5 minutes to go, so sorry. Go on.
I'm not a fan. I mean, I don't offset very much at all, if anything. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, I get all the time, you know, buy this and I'll plant a tree. How do I know you're planting a tree? You know, and for me, you know, I'm on a farm. I actually went and planted 500 trees. And I'll tell you, you couldn't just plant a tree. I had to get this advisor around who told you what trees, what weather conditions, what sort of things. You couldn't just choose your tree. And I'm getting very skeptical of these companies who kind of go, well, I've offset it, so it's okay. I'm sustainable because I've offset. And I just think it's a bit of a cop-out and a bit of a thing to sort of tick the box. And I hope with this greenwashing that is probably one area that hopefully they start homing in on to say, actually, are these trees being planted? Because you don't know, do you? You know, anyway, that's just my...
Spoken like a true skeptic, Celia. Well played. I'd be interested in what you think, Jo.
Yeah, so actually on exactly the same page, a little bit unsure. about what it means. Ultimately, we should all be trying to do better. And by doing better, then we won't need to offset as much because there won't be as much to offset. I think there's a little bit of a thought process that big, massive organisations like mine would just pay to do and not do better, but just pay the consequences. And I think that is another side of offsetting. But there are some amazing projects. Okay, I would always advocate great projects. You know, there are some super companies out there doing some great stuff. Would I use them as offsetting projects? Probably not. Would I absolutely endeavour to use them as social enterprise and to grow my business and to do the right thing? Absolutely. I think it's a very, very hard thing to measure. Because I've been bad, I just have to pay my way out of it. And I think that's ultimately what offsetting could potentially mean. And there is a very, very big debate at government level around that.
I pushed my luck too much on the questioning, so I've not given you guys enough time, and that's really, really naughty. So I'm going to take executive power and basically push it a little bit further. So if you have got any questions, now's a really, really good chance to do so. Or points, right, by the way. If you've got something to say, let's say it. Come on, Felicia.
I have no points, only questions. So I know there's a lot of dependence on suppliers, and you've spoken a lot about... Oh, yeah, sorry, I'll wait. There's a lot of dependence on suppliers to do, like you said, pick the right partners. And I often say the same thing because I'm technically a supplier. But do you think there's almost too much that's just like, oh, the supplier will take care of it, the hotel will take care of it, the hotel should think about the food, that they'll do it. Do you think there should be a little bit more on the planners themselves saying, actually, these are the choices that we're making, we're taking it into our own hands?
Oh, my goodness, absolutely. The ultimate event organizer and a planner is somebody who comes to you who has actually got objectives around this space and actually wants support and wants you to help them with it. I mentioned earlier around, it never ceases to amaze me how companies have got a website, it's got a page on it about sustainability. It tells you they have a net zero plan to 2020, 30, 2050 is the government net zero plan. It tells you all of those things. And then actually they come to you and they tell you what they want, and it bears no resemblance to their plan. So I think if we were to join up the dots, I think we would all be in a better place. And I think it's through education and enablement that will happen. But you're absolutely right. And I come at this from a venue point of view, as does Celia, that the venues are actually at the brunt of all of this. We have to put things in place at venue level. We have to make sure we get rid of the waste properly. We have to make sure we measure the energy. We have to make sure that we have the water sorted. We have to make sure that the chef's cooking stuff. We've got to make sure that we plant forward. And it always seems to be the venues that actually have to are really at the sharp end of all of that. And I think you're right. Ultimately, it's a responsibility of all of us. Great question.
Thanks, Felicia. Thanks, Joe. I didn't realise there's all these people behind us, basically. So you got the back of my head for most of that. Does anyone have any questions in and around of that? Sorry, I'm just going to come around. I'm going to go ITV Daytime TV again. Where do you
Hiya. So I know you spoke about the pricing and how it's... Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how you spoke about the pricing and how it can be perceived as expensive. And I think I think that is possibly what puts a lot of people off being more sustainable. Do you think there's something that we can do to... Because obviously I know there are, as you spoke about, elements which are relatively cost-effective with regards to sustainability. But obviously I know fundamentally like buying fruit and veg and buying organic and buying things that are good for the environment is more expensive. What do you think suppliers can do to help bring down the cost of sustainability for event producers?
Well, I mean, I gave the example of changing the black bags to the clear bags. That's a relatively cheap thing to do. I think a lot of it, so for example, we're a small venue, and for our fruit and veg supplier, for example, we have a local person who goes to the market at sort of 5 a.m. or whatever and chooses and directly and brings all the fruit and veg directly from the markets and the wholesaler to us in the morning with no packaging or just in boxes, and literally just drops that off. The butcher that we use literally has no packaging. All the meat's just in a tray that is directly from our our sources. And yeah, we do use big companies as well, but I think it's about picking people off and start with one supplier, and can you help them become a bit more sustainable. Like we've just changed all our wines from just buying any old wine. We've now gone to the Sea Change wines, which have a sort of charitable donation towards saving the turtles and things like this. And it's about looking at all the products that you use and is there a sustainable alternative. It doesn't have to be that much more expensive. It's about choosing wisely and having a bit of negotiation with the suppliers. You'll find that kind of from paper, like photocopier paper, switching to a FSC supply, certified paper and things like that. It's just little, it's chipping away at it. You can't just go in and go, I'm going to be completely sustainable. This has taken me a long time to get to this position, but you just have to do little bits at a time. Find your biggest things that you're using and see if there's a sustainable alternative. For me, it's not massively more expensive to go sustainable. In fact, you save on your electricity, you save on your water usage, you save on your wastage. All our food waste is picked up and taken to make biomass if there is any, and things like this, biofuel, sorry. And it's just looking at everything. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability should not come at a price. If you're buying seasonal and local, it's more expensive to fly strawberries in and avocados in than ever it is actually to actually eat local and seasonal. And so it shouldn't be. I think that the more we do this, this will come out. I think I think you're right. Planet and profit have always been a bit of a challenge. Doing the right thing. But I think we will see this more and more in terms of supply chain, and I think it is all linked to the local, to the seasonal, and that shouldn't be a more expensive way of procuring. It really genuinely shouldn't. And I've always had a bit of a thing about organic. I don't, when there's a label on it, I'm kind of, trying to understand what does that actually mean. And if, and I think I'm relatively, educated in this space, and it's really quite hard to understand. It's because that actually is around a smaller, that's not a volume production, and that's probably potentially where the costs could be. But actually, if you're doing it regionally, if you're doing it locally, if you're doing it seasonally, just by virtue of that, it might not be classed as organic, but it actually will be classed as great food.
Thanks, Jo. We run out of time. That was mostly my fault, but thanks so much for the questions. Look, the guys are going to be around for a bit as well, so by all means come and have a chat, continue the conversation as we go. I've got 2 plugs. One, I just want to say thank you to the guys at Lighthouse Events for supplying the AV so you can all hear, which makes these sessions a lot more productive. But I also wanted to just flag up 2 more sessions for the rest of the day. The next one, which is on modern day marketing, which I think would be really, really important. We're creating our event. Let's go out and make sure people want to come. And then we're going to finish off with a really important subject around accessibility as well. So please do stick around for those sessions. They're really worth it. They're very modern. They're very important subjects. But before we do, can we just get a really big round of applause for Jo and Celia? And thanks, and have a good rest of your show.